attending COP26 in person here in the Blue Zone at the Multi-Level Action Pavilion, but also our guests joining us virtually through the virtual pavilion space, also wherever you're connected. Good afternoon, good evening as well. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability. And I'm also the focal point for local governments and municipal authorities constituency. This hour is our daily briefing session. The purpose of these hours is to discuss with our members what are the key progress, especially in the negotiation zone, which is the Blue Zone, but also we are touching the rest of the agendas that is taking place and inside the Blue Zone or outside in the city of Glasgow and Edinburgh as well. Yesterday, we had a longer session where we have taken a flashback to how we work in the advocacy space. Joe, maybe you can go to the next slide. I would like to encourage to those who have joined for the first time today, you can go to the presentation so that we don't repeat this, but this is for you like a condensed information about who are we, what are we doing in the space, and how can we contribute further. So Joe, we can go towards next slide. Here you can see our strategy for this COP. We want to make sure the multi-level action is the new normal as the outcome. We want to focus on finance, and this will be today's intense discussion because there are now documents coming up. Just climate is what we are also chasing for or aiming for every city and region. And we are improving our engagement in the process. So we will touch upon this as well. You can have a look at our press conference on the 31st of October, the World Cities Day, and our roadmap is also announced on the public page of the COP26 of citiesandregions.org. Next slide, Joe. This is important. We have to keep in mind the COP depends on the success of the national documents, national plans that are developed at the national level. So we have seen a surge of nationally determined contributions being developed with local and governments, and these are the ones who have raised ambition. So that's why we are encouraging nations to build upon this experience and make sure that this becomes a normal, the new normal in the second phase of Paris Agreement, which is already started from COP26 onwards. Next slide, please. So there are a series of events that's taking place. Accreditation to the Blue Zone is limited, of course, participation to Blue Zone is limited to accreditation, but the other events in the city of Glasgow depends on their own processes of invitation. You don't need UNFCCC accreditation for that. Next slide. We are doing this briefings in our own home at the Blue Zone, which is the Multi-Level Action Pavilion. We are delighted to develop this agenda and space, physical space and virtual space with support, technical, financial and political support of Scottish Government. ICLEI is convening the agenda and managing the space, and we have a pool of partners across the world who have made this possible. So if you also check our agenda from at 10 a.m. till 6 p.m., you have other sessions that is going on. It is particularly designed according to the agendas of the presidency. And we also have daily coverage from the Earth Negotiation Bulletin. That one event every day is covered by Earth Negotiation Bulletin as well. Next slide, Joe. Yeah, the themes we want to relate ourselves so that it is not out of the box or isolated. Today is the Youth Day. Today is particularly important because over the past 2 years, you may have recall, Fridays for Future, the youth movement has played a huge role in raising ambition. This was instrumental for many local governments to declare climate emergencies, but also push the voice of the next generation that the climate action should be dealt seriously with by this generation who are the ones in power. And I think this will be a huge discussion today. In our pavilion, while we are talking about youth, we also would like to talk about intergenerational equity. And we would like to talk about culture as well. And in fact, the next session here at 10 a.m. will be very, very put to the point. We will have a debate with Climate Heritage Network, who will be launching their both youth groups, but also bringing culture, youth, and local governments. So we invite you to join us there as well. Next slide. Yeah, our QR code can be for you helpful for the scanning of all the agendas, and those who registered onto the Hop-in platform can also watch the previous sessions online on an on-demand service. So that is the value of also being yourselves subscribed to this process, as well as receiving the daily bulletins as well. Next slide. This is a wrap up of what we have achieved over this past days. We would like to highlight one new update. Yesterday at the presidency's open dialogue, the statement from local governments and municipal authorities was delivered by João Campos, mayor of Recife, Brazil. We will also share the link later on. This statement was particularly nice because it was just delivered next to the youth groups, and Mayor Campos is the youngest mayor in the capital of his state, and that his message was also very touching, and that also relates to this discussion that to move local and regional governments and all levels of governments engaging with citizens, and particularly bringing youth voice into the process as well as decision-making process is key. So in the next couple of days, on Monday or Tuesday, we're also expecting the high-level segments interventions, and we are invited, and he kindly accepted Andy Burnham, the great mayor of Greater Manchester, will also deliver our statement on behalf of all local and regional governments. Since this is a COP hosted in the UK, we were very happy that the voice of the UK cities is delivered by also another UK leader, and Andy Burnham is one of the most ambitious leaders in the UK. So we appreciate his kind acceptance of our invitation. So let's focus on the core agenda today. Next slide, Joe. Yeah, that was a repetition of slides. So this slide is a screenshot of the file that has been available on the web. So let's spend some time on that, because this also shows what is the way negotiations are being, let's say, how they are developed. This is a document that is at the moment, as you have seen, it says with that draft text, which means that is at the moment, it is not an approved document. It is, however, a bit serious because now it has paragraphs, numbers, it has brackets, it has parentheses, it has official language, which means now the way to develop this document is kicked off, officially kicked off. Obviously, there were previous versions of this text, but this was not available to observers. This was only discussed among the parties. So we as observers, we were not able to access this officially, but now this is on the table. This text is about one agenda item, and I think there are discussing about hundreds of agenda items at this COP. This is for us one of the most important one, because you have been discussing that, you may be recalling that one of the remaining agenda items that the finance mechanisms of the Paris Agreement is not defined yet. This COP will be make or break for the finance discussions, and in the finance discussions there are two let's say work streams. One is the traditional, let's say, legacy of the Kyoto Protocol, which is flexibility mechanisms that was announced in 1997, which in fact was enabling those developed countries who were committed to reduce their emissions to use investments in the let's say, restricted countries, which is those who do not have responsibility for reductions, so that their investments in these countries can be accounted for their responsibilities. So you are emitting one ton here, but you are not able to avoid further, and you invest for an emission reduction mechanism, which is a renewable energy project and reforestation project, and the amount of emission reductions that will be achieved because of this investment will be accounted for your responsibility. That was the era of Kyoto Protocol, and obviously it has advantages and disadvantages. It has its own frauds, or it has its own opportunities. For many local and regional governments, this was a hope to attract investments, although in the past 20 years it was not fully reflected. The share of the local energy governments in hosting these projects was almost less than 10% in terms of the whole volume. And there are other questions that the real, let's say, budget or the real volume of money was not necessarily at this investment, but the trading of these, let's say, calculated or registered accounts. So that created a lot of concern from especially the developed countries, that the main source of money is channeled into those who made this business. So trading of these texts and quotas instead of asking the investment. So since Paris Agreement, there is now a proposal. So this Article 6.4 emission trading scheme will be revised. So this will be important because there are national governments now all around the world who also have their commitments. So it's not just they help the others, they also are responsible. So how these emission reductions will be calculated and traded will be a big discussion. But there is a second discussion that is coming on the table, which is non-market mechanism. And this is developed by particularly parties from the global south. And they say that we do not want to rely on market mechanisms. We also want to have non-market mechanisms. And this for us was, as local energy governments, was particularly exciting because we would like to see sustainable integrated urban and territorial development as part of these mechanisms. So if you see now, paragraph 4 in the second page, actually, this is a screenshot, you see there are so many brackets. This means that this article may not be even written, so that in this decision from COP26, they can agree that, no, we will not define these activities in this session, maybe we will take time. They may define it very vaguely, or they may define a long list of texts, as you can see here. It says, the most important thing is that I think, and I want to draw your attention to the first part. I cannot use the computer, so here, paragraph 1 starts with the non-market mechanisms to be integrated, holistic, and balanced. I think this is a very crucial point because we are also supporting the idea that, especially for sustainable urbanization, we have to go beyond just one buildings project, just one tram line, just one unique part of the whole problem, but we would like to go for more comprehensive and transformative solutions. And in that sense, especially in the global south, if we look at the new urbanization will come in this new developing countries, if we can think about a new type of urbanization that is much different than the business as usual, and the amount of carbon dioxide reductions and adaptation benefits that will be achieved through disinvestments, if this can be considered as a non-market mechanism, that could open a huge new era of investments and mobilization of resources, capacity building, and collaboration with national governments. One of the most important points is that these new cities, these new urbanizations will not be developed by the current mayors. A mayor can only serve if there is a city, if there is a citizen. So definitely the new urbanization will be developed by the national governments or led by the national governments. Therefore, convincing the national governments that this is something that they can also be part of participating, I think that will be an attractive point. And I think that could open the door for multi-level collaboration that we have been asking for. Obviously, the details can be discussed in more details, but if you look at now the paragraph 4, you see the 12 options. It says this says work program activities. So non-market approaches, work program activities. It starts with joint mitigation adaptation of forests, social ecological resilience, emissions removals, energy efficiency. And then if you see, there's a number of brackets. So the logic is that this first 4 was already prepared and discussed, and these are added by some partners, some parties. We don't know yet. We don't know who inserted this, but it means if there's a bracket, there are some parties who disagree. This means that the ones who proposed this text has to convince the others so that they agree. The agreement could be, it could say fossil fuel subsidy reform. It could say just fuel reform. So this could be a negotiation. It says financial and fiscal incentive schemes for renewable energy. The negotiation could be just renewable energy, or there could be a complete new text coming up. But here it goes on and on and on. Production of hydrogen. So The logic from our side is that there should be a new text. It says, I should have written it here, but very clear 6 words. And if you see, there's none of them are detailed. It's just phrase. Sustainable, integrated, urban, and territorial development is what we want to put here. The reason why it is important, in 97, when Kyoto Protocol was written, the whole flexibility mechanisms, all these new processes on emissions trading and CDM was not defined there. It was only one sentence. It says that with this protocol, parties agreed that there will be flexibility mechanisms, full stop. So they just agreed in something that they didn't define. So it took 5 or 6 years for them to define the mechanics, modalities. So if we can here in Glasgow, make sure that there is a text, it says sustainable, integrated, urban, and territorial development, we can use either this year or the next years that the details, what do we mean, how this can be developed, can be negotiated and further developed. So now this is in the hands of parties. So we are now inviting all the partners of the LGMA and all our partners in the negotiation groups, the multi-level, Friends of Multi-Level Action, and anyone who has purple badge. This is important. Jan, maybe you can show your purple badge. So we as observers have our yellow badges. This means that we can time to time speak, but we cannot put text into the negotiation document. So it's not it should not come from a person or organization which has a yellow badge, but just like Jan has, which is the purple badge that represents that it is a party that has to put this on the table. So in the next couple of days, we have to work on it. Why in the next couple of days? Actually, it's not even a couple of days, less than a day, because you also see that the reference to this document is, it says SUBSTA, which means this is a negotiation body, which is technically preparing the basics of the decisions. And this is a body that will finish its job tomorrow. So, but we all know COP is continuing until next Friday. The logic is that on Saturday, the latest version of this document, it could be longer, it could be shorter, it could have more brackets, we don't know. From Saturday onwards, it will be the authority of the presidency, the UK government, how to lead the negotiations. They can introduce complete new text, or they can build on the existing text, but ask for suggested new language. And it will be their skills and responsibility to convince the others and the negotiators, all the other countries. And next week is the ministers coming. So when we say negotiators, the bureaucrats of ministers of environment, director generals or undersecretaries, obviously their authority to give and take is limited, so that they can say that, look, the consensus that will be reached and the gains and losses of my position is beyond my authority to decide on. Therefore, I leave this final decision-making power to the ministers. And that's why the last weeks of COPs, or let's say the last week of COPs, is always particularly stressful, because it is the ministers now getting onto the rooms and discussing these documents. So if by tomorrow afternoon, and actually tomorrow afternoon means tonight, there should be a new text. If we can insert the 6 words, that's good. If we cannot, it's not the end of the world. We still have ways to go forward. We could still this time work with the presidency and other negotiators, other ministers. If a minister says that I want to put this, let's say, Tuesday morning next week or Wednesday morning, and let's imagine we have Cities and Regions Day on Thursday. So it is still a room that we can play with. Therefore, it is very sensitive. So we encourage, as I said, in the next presentation, we will send the link to this document, but we have now created a WhatsApp group so that we can coordinate, because those who remember yesterday, on Wednesday, there was the finance day and we had negotiations, or we had sessions with our colleagues from UN Capital Development Fund, ICLEI, we had CC35, R20, we have FMDV, who created new announcements, new initiatives. So the experts within the local government authorities and our friends and the parties, so that if we can stay in coordination, so that we can tell which party wants to put this on the table, who can help. And of course, it's also important, who will be the first person on the country to put this text on the table, because it's not always what you say, it's also who you are is also important, how it is adopted. Obviously, this is a priority for developing countries. If a developed country put this text on the table, developing countries may react, oh, they are having an agenda that will impose on us. We should reject that. That's a typical traditional Cold War era negotiation position. Therefore, this text should preferably could come from a developing country. It could come from Africa, the world's fastest urbanization continent. It's also the next COP host, so that if they take ownership of this position, they can also bring this as the next step, that the details of this new era of urbanization will be decided in the Africa COP. And that could be a pride for Africa, or Asia can do that, or Latin America could do that, because we are the world's most urbanized continent. So we should now get onto the full force to make sure this is happening. Obviously, we have challenges. We still have side events. We are going from one session to another, trying to communicate our achievements. But this is the real part of the negotiations here, that we can always have our side events, but the negotiations will not come again. So we have to catch them here. We have to find them. We have to convince them, and we have to work with them. So I will not continue too long today. We'll be cutting short. This is the most important agenda of today and tomorrow. So I encourage throughout the day, let's stay in connection. Let's keep each other informed, so that we make sure this proposal comes onto the table, that sustainable, integrated urban and territorial development is considered as one of the work program activities of non-market approaches. The last slide today is one of the things that we could cover in the Blue Zone. At 3:30, we will have the dialogue of UNFCCC Executive Secretary Patricia Espinosa with observers. This means that all those who have the yellow badges can attend this meeting. This will be an opportunity to discuss. Obviously, yesterday open dialogue was important. There are huge concerns and critics about the logistics, access to the processes. It will be a tough 1.5 hour, but it is essential, because dialogue, keeping the dialogue channels open, is the key to success. And yesterday, Patricia Espinosa very frankly apologized for all let's say, consequences of either mismanagement or misunderstandings that resulted huge pressure and stress on the civil society representatives, observers. This was a very nice gesture. Having that very frank apology was well received, welcome. In fact, it was the NGOs who asked us for apology. So it is that shows that the dialogue between the different actors, as long as it is in the level of respect and constructive spirit, we can always achieve results. Therefore, we would continue to this kind of discussions. Like it or not, I would be moderating this session. It will be not an easy one, so I should be keeping my nerves and skills ready, so that I do not upset, but I also do not create an atmosphere where people are exploding onto Executive Secretary, because we need her as a Secretariat staff from the bottom to the top is our best partners in this process. They're under huge pressure. We have to help them so that they could help us. So that is a coverage of today's daily briefings. I would like to give the floor now to our partners, representatives. If there is any input, with I mean, you have noticed we haven't touched many things. We haven't gone through other events, but as I said, this is a Blue Zone mode now. This is a COP mode. Therefore, we want to focus on the negotiations as a priority. So if you want to introduce yourself, I mean, if you can introduce yourself, that will be welcome. Use the microphone so that they can hear you.
Hello. Thank you very much for that excellent summary. My name is Pippa Palings, and I'm from the Local Government Association. And we are here with a specific ask as well, which fits in exactly with what you've been saying. And I know the officers from LGA have been working with the LGMA. I'm one of the elected members, so I'm from the Liberal Democrats. So I'm the lead member from the Liberal Democrats on the cross-party National Climate change task group. And what we'd like to know is how can we effectively help exactly what you've just said. We want to know, where we can put the greatest pressure in terms of the negotiating text. So I'd very much like to see, we will have all parties, elected members from all of the political parties in the UK together next week. But I'm here early to make sure that we can exactly do the pressure at the subster level, and then perhaps take that to next week. So, as you were saying, it depends on which country puts that forward. I'm just wondering, what should we do in terms of the UK presidency? Where do you see that in terms of negotiating strategy? We can use that the most.
Sorry, I missed your name, Pipa. So first of all, it's a great pleasure to be welcome in your country, and thanks for your hospitality and wish you the best of luck. Just to recall, we have a number of partners from the UK, local and regional government networks associations, and LGA is one of them, as you mentioned. We have COSLA, we have UK 100, we have Core Cities UK, and next week, actually, we will have a special event of LGA in this pavilion. I think it will be on the 10th of November. So those who are following us, you're more than welcome to learn more about what is local government association in the UK, how they're functioning. It's a unique body. First of all, as I said, thanks a lot for your openness. And yes, exactly, this is the discussion we should have. I suggest we continue this discussion. It would be good for you to learn who is leading in the UK delegation, leading the Article 6 themes, so that at least we find first the right person. And when the presidency starts to have the authority, so obviously UK will not do anything until Saturday, because they will say that this is a party-driven process. We are here to moderate this, and I will only come if you cannot agree. So at this stage, I think the UK is all watching. They will not put any text. But starting from Saturday onwards, they may come up with those texts. Therefore, I think it's even more important that we know about these people today and tomorrow, because the presidency text can come anytime on the weekend. Today in the week, there's an announcement so that it says presidency, how they would like to lead the sessions next week. It would be good that if you can have a read on that. Because the time pressure, the presidency may introduce their alternative text immediately on Saturday evening even. So if this would be the case, it would be important that they can put this onto the table, or we are in touch with them so that they are aware of it, and they can say that if a developing country party puts, I will take it as a presidency, so that, and that is a bit more appropriate. So we should find a friendly nation. So our proposals would be Moroccan government, Rwanda government, Dominican Republic, Zimbabwe. These are the countries who have developed their NDCs with local and regional governments, and they are the shining examples. So we could check whether they're in touch with those delegations. We're also thinking of Kenya, because they are hosting the UN institutions, and they are always a shining example of also collaboration. They are also had played a role in urban the context. So these are the type of balances we have to take into account. But I would first of all encourage you to join our WhatsApp group. I hope you're using WhatsApp, and then we keep each other informed of who's who, so that we follow later on. It's good that you will stay till the next week, so that we can make sure. What do you have your party overflow badge or NGO badge? Observer. Okay. Any additional comments, inputs, suggestions? I'm sorry, I'm checking time to time. We are in this world of online world, that anytime there are maybe texts coming up. We have, I suggest we can keep 10 more minutes to have additional points. Obviously, there are other agenda items that may be relevant for us. I mean, we are discussing about, and also in the presidency's point, Joe, can we bring back the page about this LGMA roadmap for our colleagues, especially from LGA? Yeah, next. Yeah. So we have announced our COP26 strategy as time for multi-level action. And we mean it. We literally mean it. Time for multi-level action has started already. It's not that it will start, it has started. It is just the negotiators accept and embrace this. And obviously every country has their own styles. I mean, the way a European multi-level is different than a Chinese one, the way a Latin American is different. And therefore, there's no one subscribed, one size fits for all proposal. We are all saying that multi-level has to be defined at the local national level. They have to define their relations. And throughout this week here in this pavilion, we are having multi-level dialogues in US, in Canada, Africa. We had all these sessions completed. Today we will have Europe. Next week we will have a Global South discussion. So this is the discussion we will have. But the question is, imagine a Glasgow communique, Glasgow first decision. You see the preambular paragraphs. Joe, can you go to this text again, once again? So those, just again, in those decisions, there are certain structures, and it's unfortunately at this moment it's only English, but once these are adopted, they are all in UN languages. So you can understand also the details, because English is not everybody's native language. So anything above the numbers here is in fact like generally agreed principles, or it describes the background or legal basis, why they are agreeing on this document, what is the relation to the previous ones. Look, for example, it says decision 1/CP21. This means actually the text of the Paris Agreement adopted in 2015. Paragraph 39. So this is a really legal document. In the Paris Agreement, in this decision 1/CP21, there's another preambular paragraph, list of preambular paragraph. It says that we are in recognition of all these commitments, and it's preambular paragraph 15. It says the parties to this convention or Kyoto or Paris Agreement recognize the importance of engagement of all levels of government. So this paragraph, in fact, the preambular paragraph's strength is that they make an overarching setting the scene for the rest of the articles. So if it is in the preamble, the advantage is that it is much broad. The disadvantage is that it is not specific. So in our sentences, we can recall the preambular paragraph, and the operative paragraph are here. So other than the 6.8, if you read this in the end of 12th of November, it says Glasgow Declaration, Glasgow Communique. Somewhere in this preambular paragraph, if it says that we welcome, we encourage, we embrace, that would be too strong though, the multi-level collaboration as a powerful tool to raise ambition and deliver climate actions. Imagine this kind of a wording. And that again is something that will be our first goal, which is to make sure multi-level as a notion that is adopted in the text of the Paris Glasgow outcomes. And you see, this says 1/CP21. In Paris, there were around 25 or so different texts. It's all different paragraphs, or sorry, the different themes: finance, adaptation, science, whatever. So somewhere it says decision XYZ/CP26, and this will be this final version of this text, and it will be CMA, Conference of the Meeting of Parties of Paris Agreement, something like that. So that is our goal, that the final outcome should have this minimum, a multi-level reference in the preamble paragraph, and in one of the decisions numbering the article 6.8, that this list, the final version of this list, includes us as the phrase that we have proposed. Other than those, other details are too technical. We as a constituency are not ready, I must confess. But that's why we are saying that from now on, we have to be more specific and more robust, because the advantage is that except the rest of the process, we have loss and damage mechanisms, we have indigenous people platforms, we have capacity building hubs, we have action for climate. In all of these texts, there is numerous invitations or proposals to engage local and regional governments. Therefore, it's not the COP that we are aiming, it is the work before COP that is the one that makes difference. So throughout the year, we are invited to participate in meetings, submit documents, and in order to be covering all this, we have to be much more professional. We have to get support from research institutions. We have to get our experts coming up, our environment directors, transport directors, cultural directors. They should all be aware that their outcomes should now they will feed in, so that during the year we make the preparatory work, so that by the time we come here, the proposals are in this document. So that is a long-term process, but it is how it goes on. And particularly, that will be again maybe concluding remark. Paris Agreement acknowledged that we are important. The NDCs are now starting to bring us in. Therefore, both at the local level, all our municipal decisions should acknowledge climate emergency, should aim for climate neutrality, ambitious targets, but we should also make sure we fit here appropriately. This is now our part of our municipal duties, because it is by being recognized in these official documents, we are actually increasing workload for us. But the local government should be prepared for that, that whatever we are doing at home is now also much more officially heard and integrated into global processes. Hello, can we just hear who you are? Okay. Lot watching. For those colleagues, sorry, I should have given the mic. This is a silent theater, and there is international, or let's say virtually, there are audience who are listening to us. Therefore, microphone. Maybe let's give.
Hello. Oh, right. It's silent. Erin Shaw. I work for Plant Life International. It's a wild plant conservation charity. It's our first COP, so the briefings have been helpful to understand how this works.
Hi, yes, of the same organizations.
Yeah.
And we have a colleague who is following us. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I can. Hello, my name is Nikola Strachova. I'm from Czech Republic, and I'm a researcher from the University of Economics and Business in Prague, and I'm focusing on multi-level, subnational level diplomacy. So that's why I'm here.
Hello, this is Professor Uyar from Turkey. I'm the chair of the Eurosolar Turkey and vice president of Eurosolar Bonn. Nice to meet you all. I'm teaching at Beykent University as a professor. Thank you very much.
So the reason why I'm also giving the opportunity, first of all, thank you for your interest, but also just to recall, as you said, these are brief constituency briefings. This is an open space. We are open, transparent, but in theory, these are the discussions that we're having internally. Imagine now the bingos, the business groups, the climate action network, or the indigenous people are having their own meetings as well. And they're also discussing their strategies. The logic is that starting from 10 a.m., everybody will be now spreading into the rooms, the corridors, and they will defend what they agreed. Obviously, in a negotiation, you should keep your cards a bit closer to yourself so that when the others are talking to you, you don't immediately give up your all cards. So this is a bit for exaggeration. We are not negotiators here, but the logic is that this is an internal meeting so that that should not be quoted widely. So feel free to keep yourself. Obviously, if this was a block of countries, they would never allow you in, and they will never let you discussions go out, because they said that this is our red line, this is our red list. If this is not adopted, we will boycott or we will get out of the room. So that's how the negotiations are blocked, or let's say, or sort it out, because then they say that if this is done, then I would say yes. And of course, they should not say this immediately.
Thank you. And can I just ask, what's the strategy for getting into the preamble of the Glasgow Agreement to get that one acknowledgement?
The UK presidency has a big machinery. It's one of the most well-equipped delegations that is leading the change the yeah. So they have around 200 experts who are following different agendas. And they have a specific team on engagement, and they have a specific team on cities. On the 11th of November, the UK government will host a series of presidency-led events. And these are the processes which will produce results. Unfortunately, we are not involved in the design of these events. There are other partners who are involved. We encourage them to talk to us. They are hearing us time to time. What I could do, I can introduce you to them so that you can also force this. So ideally, from these meetings, there should be some outcomes that feed into this process. So we can work on it. I think we have to come to a closer. I think you're all going to some other sessions as well. Joe, are we good? Is there, Kale, are you checking? Is there any input from the virtual chat box? Okay. Well, it's not that bad. At least we haven't at least missed any points. So tomorrow we will continue this session. My colleague Kale will take the session. You're more than welcome. Let's hope we can provide you some updates. Don't forget at 3:30, Executive Secretary is waiting for all the observers. Throughout the day, there are special events. I will not go through the details. At 10 a.m., starting here, youth and culture, and the whole day is full of very interesting, exciting events. I encourage you to join us. The first event, I will be introducing the Mayor of Izmir Metropolitan Municipality, Tunç Soyer, who is the co-chair of climate action of ICLEI, Global Executive Committee, and it will be held by Climate Heritage Network, and it will also be engaging with a number of youth groups. So it will be fantastic, and you can follow the rest of the agenda. With this, I'd like to conclude the session, and thank you all, and I hope to see you later on. WhatsApp group.